It isn't easy to find an affordable house these days. I'm sure plenty of people out there are struggling just like I was. I looked everywhere in my hometown, hoping I could find something suitable. But even the lowest prices and the worst homes were double what I could afford. So I expanded my search. On the website, I used that filter option that lets you broaden your scope to 50 miles or 100 miles, whatever you choose. When I did that, I also selected fewer bedrooms than I would have liked, and increased the price even further than I could afford. Still, it came up empty. The only places within my budget looked like hovels being used by squatters, or they came with dubious clauses in the fine print like, current tenant may be agreeable to leaving but would prefer to stay. Refusing to give up, I increased the search parameters further, all the way up to 500 miles. I worked from home, so I figured I could go anywhere I wanted, really. There was nothing tying me down anymore, since my parents had passed away several years prior, and they were my only living family. I had never made very many friends in school, and by now they had all moved away themselves. I was looking to start over somewhere, so what did it matter if I moved 50 miles or 500? Finally, after increasing the search threshold far beyond what was reasonable, I managed to find a result that suited my needs, and was even cheaper than I was expecting. I looked through the pictures and found the home was neat and tidy, although it wasn't renovated or anything like that. The kitchen had older appliances and the carpets were orange shag, but the place had good bones from the looks of it, and it was cheap. The town had a bit of an ominous name, though. It was called Hollow's End. 3 weeks later, I found myself living there. It all happened so fast, it was like a dream. My meager possessions were moved in, and I stood there in the midst of the empty house feeling like a king. For once, I was master of my own domain. No more renting for me. And I'd paid off a tidy chunk of the principal using the money I'd saved. There was even some left over to replace this hideous orange shag carpet, I thought to myself, surveying the furry expanse of it. Who the hell keeps carpet like this? I said aloud, and the doorbell rang. Weird, I muttered. Wonder who that could be. I swung open the door to reveal a pretty young woman with wavy brown hair standing on my porch. She was holding a gift basket and looked oddly nervous. Hello, she said, shifting her weight from foot to foot. Welcome to the neighborhood. I'm Daisy. I live across the street with my husband Steve. She half turned to look across the street, and I followed her gaze. There was a man on the porch over there who was stumbling around, picking things up and putting them down pointlessly. He seemed to trip suddenly and almost fell over, then righted himself and stood up all the way. He had a can of something in his hand, I noticed, and he took a long sip from it. Then he squinted at me from across the road. I waved, but he didn't wave back. Sorry about him, he hasn't been himself lately. Oh, that's okay, I said, not sure how to reply. No, it's not, she said, handing me the gift basket. I should go check on him. She turned around and began to walk away, leaving me feeling oddly disappointed with the interaction. But then she turned around and spoke again. What she said did not make me feel better. Garbage day's on Tuesday. And listen, if you hear something tonight, or any night for that matter, I don't want you to try to help, okay? Just trust me. If you hear something, stay inside. It's for your own good. With that, she turned around and walked back across the street. She got to the top of the steps, and her husband's gaze darkened, looking at her strangely as she made her way inside. He followed after her, slamming the door shut with a loud bang. The fuck? I muttered, closing my own door and locking it. I figured the woman was crazy, and her husband was a drunk. But later that night, I would find out the horrifying truth of it all, despite her warnings to stay away. After eating a disquieted dinner of pizza and warm beer, I watched The Office on Netflix for a while, then zoned out through several episodes of Futurama on Disney+. Once I realized what time it was, I figured I'd better head off to bed. I settled in under the covers after brushing my teeth and listened to the strange sounds of the new house. It was so quiet. Almost too quiet after living in my old place on a busy corner. I opened the window, which was just beside me, feeling the cold breeze from outside as it rushed in. The fresh air was nice, but I still couldn't sleep. Every time I was close to drifting off, some alien noise in the house would catch me by surprise and I would jerk awake. Maybe I just needed to get used to the place, I thought. Glancing at my phone, I saw it was past 3 a.m. now. The witching hour. That horrible time of night where you realize you need to fall asleep soon, or you won't sleep at all, and the sun will rise before you can even drift off. My leg was itchy. My throat was dry. I couldn't sleep on my back. I couldn't sleep on my side. Laying flat on my stomach, I sighed and looked at my phone again. 3:45. Ugh. I groaned, closing my eyes and dropping the phone on the nightstand. The moment it landed, I heard a scream from outside. Not just any scream. An ear-splitting, terror-stricken, somebody dying sort of scream. There was a brief moment of silence before it came again. Whoever it was, they were in trouble. I got out of bed, pacing as I tried to figure out what to do. The police. I'll call the police, I thought to myself, picking up my phone and dialing 911. Strangely, it didn't go through. There was just an odd ring, like if you dial a number that doesn't exist, and then it went dead. I tried again, and the same thing happened. The scream came again, more pained this time, as if whoever was making that noise was being slowly tortured to death. I put on my pants and a shirt, grabbing a baseball bat. If the police weren't going to come help that poor woman, I would do it myself. That was when I remembered the words Daisy had said earlier. If you hear something tonight, or any night, I don't want your help. Just trust me, she had said. If you hear something, stay inside. It's for your own good. She had told me not to go outside if I heard something. It was as if she knew this was going to happen. It was her drunken husband, I had no doubt. He was probably doing something horrible to her. She was trying to protect me by telling me not to help, knowing he would be angry with her. I imagined him as the jealous type, enraged that she had brought me a gift basket, despite it just being a kind, neighborly gesture. He was going to kill her if I didn't do something. One more scream came from outside, this one even more ear-splitting and terrorized than the previous cries. Without even putting on my shoes, I ran outside barefoot. The moment my feet hit the cold dew of the grass, I knew I was in trouble. Some instinct told me I was in danger, as the hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. "Get inside!" a voice screamed from across the street, and I looked to see the woman from earlier who had given me the gift basket. Daisy. She wasn't the one screaming after all. She looked perfectly fine, only a bit frightened. "I told you not to go outside!" Pausing in the middle of the street in my bare feet, utterly confused, I looked around at my surroundings. And that was when I saw her. To say she was a woman would be a lie, but she did have feminine features, the curve of a waist and bust with long black hair. But that was where the similarities ended. This thing did not have a face, only a gaping black hole as dark as Vanta black paint. It seemed to absorb all of the light, giving it a surreal matte texture. It was like the woman's face was all a gaping, open mouth ready to scream. As I stood there staring at it, I realized it was getting closer, but I could no longer move. It was like I was frozen there, stuck in place. Time was moving in slow motion as the black hole that was this monster's face came closer and closer to me. Suddenly I was pushed hard from my right, as someone body slammed me. I went flying backwards, landing in the grass. I was immediately soaked from the cold dew, and sat there in the grass looking dumbstruck at the scene which was unfolding in front of me. The black hole of the monster's face was growing wider, and gaining an illumination around its edges. It glowed white at its perimeter, brighter and brighter as the black hole of the creature's face grew larger. I was so transfixed by this that I barely noticed the face of the person who had saved me. It wasn't Daisy, as I might have suspected, but her husband. The man, who I had presumed to be a drunk domestic abuser, was actually no such thing. He turned out instead to be my savior. The dark shape of the creature's face began to produce a vacuum-like effect, as the man's head was sucked into it. He stood there in the road, his entire body trembling and then shaking as if electrocuted. His body convulsed and shook as the creature consumed something from him. Some part of his mind he would never get back. And then suddenly the creature spit him out, making a disgusting noise as if dissatisfied. "Run!" Daisy screamed from across the street again, and I realized now that she was standing on her front porch. Her voice was enough to get me moving, and I ran back to my house without looking back. I slammed the door shut behind me and locked it, breathing heavily as I held it shut with all of my body weight. Then I remembered I'd left the window in the bedroom open. I ran to close it and found myself looking at a nightmare. Across the street, the creature was doing the same thing to Daisy that it had done to her husband. She tried to save me, and instead she'd drawn the thing to her with her screams. Slamming the window shut, I looked through the glass as the monster consumed Daisy's life force, her intelligence, or whatever it was that it took. I still don't know exactly, but it might be a combination of a few things. Things that make us what we are. Intangibles like a soul or spirit, whatever you want to call it. Is that what this creature was? A soul eater? Either way, I must have drawn its attention to me when I slammed the window shut, because it snapped its gaze around to look at me immediately. Daisy flopped lifelessly backwards and dropped to the ground as the creature moved toward me. Not walking, but floating across the road. It moved so much faster than before, taking almost no time to reach me. I backed away from the window glass, realizing that was the only thing separating me from this creature. Its gaping black maw opened wider and wider, and inside I could see stars and galaxies, and before I knew it, I was bolting towards the window, running, jumping, face first into that thing. I woke up covered in broken glass. The morning sun was still low in the sky, and there was a man in his boxers wearing a vintage watch and a Warhammer 40k t-shirt standing over me, sipping coffee and looking at me with mild concern. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I thought that thing had you for sure. You're really lucky. I was looking at my watch and it turned 4 a.m. just as it sucked you in. Spit you out just as quick and was gone. I've never seen anything like it. Too bad Daisy wasn't so lucky." I slowly sat up, being careful not to put my hands in any more broken glass, and looked around the neighborhood. All was normal, except across the street where Daisy and her husband were stumbling around the property, picking things up and putting them down, checking underneath them as if looking for something. "What does it do to them?" I asked. "What does it take?" The man suddenly seemed to notice again that I was there, still sitting on the lawn, which was covered in broken glass, and he came over to help me up. I got to my feet with an effort. "I'm not really sure," the man said. "Oh, sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Michael Pierce. I've lived here for a while now, so you can ask me if you have any questions about the neighborhood. Garbage Day's on Tuesday, by the way." "Yeah, Daisy told me about Garbage Day. But I'm more concerned about this other stuff. How frequently does shit like this happen in Hollow's End?" "Oh, practically all the time," he answered immediately. "Just stay inside after 3 a.m. until 4 a.m. The cops don't even answer the phone during that hour of the night. The only people calling are usually tourists. Didn't Daisy tell you any of this? She was head of the welcome wagon, but she really dropped the ball on this one. Did she at least give you the gift basket? The jams and jellies were from my wife and I." I was momentarily distracted by a dog who was in the road, gnawing on Daisy's husband's leg as he tried to lift a manhole cover unsuccessfully. "Is that your dog? Oh, shit. River, here, boy." Michael ran into the road and pulled the dog away, apologizing to the now zombified man who was our neighbor. "He gets really excited," he said, smiling awkwardly at him. He then produced a tennis ball from thin air and threw it towards his backyard, and the dog went running after it. "Well, glad you're okay. Too bad about them, though. Steve got suckered into going outside when they first moved in. He's never been the same since. Now that he's been hit again, I don't know what's going to happen to him. His brain's probably shriveled up to the size of a pea." The two of us watched Steve trying to lift the manhole cover without success, over and over again, wanting to look inside, as if trying desperately to find something. Michael turned to look at me awkwardly. "But I'm sure you're going to be fine. Anyways, enjoy those jams and jellies. Stop by any time if you need something." "Hey, wait!" I called after him as he walked away. "What the hell was that thing?" He stood there and thought about this for a few moments. Fuck if I know. Just stay inside after 3 a.m. You won't have to worry about it. Oh, and don't go into the forest after dark. And, oh, you know what? Just come over for coffee later and I'll give you the rundown. This town is different, but it's pretty great in its own ways." The dog came running back with a tennis ball in its mouth, and Michael took it in his hand, making it vanish again. Then, in the same hand, a dog biscuit appeared. He tossed it to River, and the dog quickly made the snack disappear. After he left, I went inside and tried to figure out what to do with my windows. I definitely didn't want to leave them open as they were. Smashed, broken glass everywhere. When I looked inside the gift basket, I found the answer. A business card. "Shark, I fix everything," it said, with the face of a cartoon shark holding an oversized wrench. And he definitely did. The Shark Man was as good as advertised. And the jams and jellies weren't bad either. It's been a few weeks now, and I'm still trying to decide if I'm going to stay here. Michael gave me a pretty good summation of the town, and Hollow's End is definitely an interesting place, to say the least. I'm not sure why, but it's starting to grow on me. Sure, it's weird and dangerous, and there are monsters lurking in the shadows, but the crime rates are low, and the property taxes are likewise rock bottom. And my neighbors are friendly and caring. Everyone has been pitching in to help Daisy and Steve. One of the neighbors actually took them in. An older lady who always wanted children. So now their house is up for sale, and I'll be getting new neighbors soon. I think I might sign up for the welcome wagon, so I can do a better job of warning people. I wish I had been warned better. I still feel guilty over Daisy, as if it's my fault she lost her mind, her soul, or whatever it is that creature took. Sadly, I think it took a part of mine as well. Some days I find myself wandering around, inside the house and out, picking things up and putting them down, looking underneath, as if trying desperately to find something. Today's video was supported by patrons like Mark from Earth, Crimson Muse, Joy Burton, Diane Showers, Mark Zawal, Cheryl James, Pick Your Sticker, Teddy Dog, Clue 404, Mamakato, Dante Kincaid, Zarin Ray, Angela Donovan, Blarian50, Devin Kyle, Timothy Baird, Ajeti, Bert Turner, Bajani Espinal, Michael Pierce, Big Joe, Gary Harkonnen, LaDonna Spivey, Scott Tanaka, Tom Stewart, Sherman Davis, Bryce Shelton, Susan McClendon, Elise Batiste, Lisa and the Cult Jam, Open Circuit, Fabulavore, Raymond Jaggers, That Darn Fox, Raison Detra, Kai Gaming 99, Windy Burns, The Windigo, Michael Squishy Park, The Gemstar, Vault 77 Citizen, Puppy Dan, Clovis Wolf, Elder Jelm, Derek Prey, Elder Being, KC Hawaii, Rob T, Tragic Mermaid, Darren Fishnaller, Cloves Anoya Harris, Roe Underwood, Florida Man Luke, Bethany's Mom, Winter's Kiss, Sam Brook, The White Stag, Corgi Connection, No Name, Marta Cara, Professor Elm, Kathy Barrickman, Cybard Sands, Steve Hennessy, Melanie Sanders, and The Archivist. If you'd like to help support the channel, please consider joining my Patreon page at patreon.com/Jordan Grupe Horror. As a patron, you have access to bonus videos and content, as well as a Discord channel. You'll be credited at the end of every video going forward, and if you decide to stay for 3 months, I'll name a character after you, which will be featured in an upcoming Hollow's End story. Links to join the Patreon are in the description. Thanks everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment to help the channel continue to grow, and see you again next time at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you have a great night.